Hello, welcome. Thank you for joining me today. So I'm filming this on the 9th, August 9th, right on this full moon, right after the peak of the Lionsgate portal. And I don't know about you, but I know a lot of us have had a really intense 2 weeks, and just this sort of mix of like super high frequency merged, like the most unified we've ever felt in our lives, and then at the same time some like really kind of swirling, dark, confusing energies. And so yeah, and so I really felt it kind of creeping in a little bit before the Lionsgate portal opened, right around the time I did that last reading. So I actually went back at one point and I listened to that reading because I was really struggling and confused, and I was kind of like, wait, what did that girl say? Like, I knew it was perfect medicine for me, at least. And so if you haven't seen that reading, there was a lot about kind of going into the going down into the subconscious, and that we were having these sort of like higher frequency situations, or people or things coming into our lives, and then a lot of like stuff getting kicked up in relation to that, but it being really held because what we were interfacing with was a match to this up leveling that we've done, right? So but things got really intense, I know, for me and a lot of others. And so it's interesting because I had this dream. I had this dream last night, but it's interesting because it links up. So I was at the airport with my mom. We were coming back from the ocean, which I will talk about in a minute. That trip, I was in Florida. I was in New Smyrna Beach, Florida, and we had the ocean completely to ourselves. And it was like all the house plants that I have in here in their little pots were like growing in the ground, and like just all these abundance codes. And I haven't been to Florida since I was like 7 years old. I've never been to South America or anywhere like super lush. So it was like the closest to grand abundance that I've ever been in. And it was just, I felt like I was in paradise the entire time. And really merged with the ocean and with the dolphins and with the waters. And I had a lot of amazing experiences. But so anyway, I was at the airport coming back, and I was sharing with my mom about this dream that I had, this reoccurring dream where I'm in the airport and I'm like, oh shit, I forgot to check my baggage, and like I don't know where the checkout is, and I don't know where my gate is, and oh no, this reoccurring dream. So the last time I had this dream, I remembered. I was like, oh wait, this is a dream, and in dreams we don't need baggage, so I don't have to worry about it. It is this liberating dream. And then I was like, wait a minute, I'm lucid in my dream. And I was like, well, let me look around and see if anything changes now that I'm awake in my dream. And there were these sort of like airport attendants holding these signs, and they were just kind of like holding them like mannequins, but the signs had what are they called? Musical notes and number synchronicities: 111, 222, 333. And I was just like, oh my gosh. And so I was telling my mom this dream, and then this morning I was looking on my Facebook memories, and I had literally had that dream a year ago last night. Okay, so that's so crazy. But the dream that I had this year last night was similar in that I was in New Mexico, where I live, but there was an ocean, and there was this like a peninsula, but it was very small. It was only like as big as my table here, this strip of land, and on either side was an ocean, and I was going to the ocean to the left, and I was sitting in this like alcove, and in the beginning, and I was singing, and there were like these amazing acoustics. And when I was with the ocean, there was one day where I was singing to the ocean, and I was saying these strange things were coming out of me, like numbers, and it was interesting. But anyway, so it was reminiscent of that, and that kind of like merging, unifying with the ocean energy. And so then all of a sudden I was with these people, and they felt like guides, the way I feel guides in my dreams. And I said, we were walking and we were going further down, and I was saying to her, one of the women on my right, I was saying, do I need to bring my shoes? Do you think I should bring my shoes? Are they okay here? She turns around, she looks at me, and she's like, well, this is a dream, so you don't need your shoes. And I was like, oh, right, it's a dream, and we don't need shoes and dreams. So it was very similar to that other dream, and just the synchronicity of how it linked up, where I was just telling my mom, and this is a dream, and we don't need these things. But the energy that I'm feeling from this is just is very much like that. It's like we're moving into the dream. We're moving into the quantum space where everything is merged, and we don't need to bring, not only do we not need to bring our baggage with us, but we can't, and so that's what I was feeling in that I realize now what I was feeling in that last reading, where it's like we were stepping onto our higher timelines into this unified field, but we can't take anything with us. And so immediately, as soon as we start stepping in, there's gonna be this squish. And of course, there's been squishes, but it's been at a pace, like, we don't always feel that we can handle it, right? Sometimes we feel like we're going to die, or we want to die, or we're going insane, but we do handle it. But it's like with this one, it feels rough. It felt rough, and it felt confusing. And like, I feel like a lot of us, we got pushed into our deepest core wounds. So for me, well, it's basically like I have been gaslighting myself my entire life, because I'm super intuitive, and I pick up on things that other people don't, and I have guidance that's the opposite of other people, and I've been that way my whole life, but I didn't have a good reflection around me, so I was always gaslighting myself and just like, oh, you know what you're talking about, and this and that. So I manifested that as my outer reflection, as part of my unlocking. He was a dark angel, and he played his role perfectly for me. This was my ex-husband, and gaslit me all the time, and it was basically like a cult leader, and but I haven't had an experience like that since then. It took me 7 years to get out, and then another 12 years to get out in my consciousness, where I could raise it up into that unconditional love, seeing the higher purpose of it, and knowing it was part of my awakening and part of my healing and holding and coming home to myself. So what happened for me is I connected with a person, and we connected really, really deeply immediately. We were both mystics, we were both vessels, and we just immediately went into that unified field and that space where we were just always on the same page. And there were like miracles happening, where what we were connecting with in the it was from afar, it was long distance, but what we were connecting with would then show up in the nature where both of we were. So there were all these like miracles and magic and synchronicity, but there were some things in his energy that were really flaggy to me, and I really liked what I was feeling with him. It was beyond what I had ever experienced with anybody. Very, very beautiful, very just different. It was, I had reached a different level, and that level reached me. But yeah, there were like all this, and as I started speaking up about these things, just not to criticize him or change him, just to set my own boundaries, and to kind of carve out things in a way that I needed things to be for myself at my own pace and my own comfortability. And I was being gaslit, and I was like, what the fuck, like, that's crazy. Because on the one hand, it's almost like that false light thing, where like I feel so amazing, but there's all this like weird stuff going on. But it was, it was false light in the sense that there wasn't an integration, on his part, but it was also, it was light, it was true light, and I was having a true experience. And just like with my ex, he was the perfect reflection to what I needed to clear out what was in the way. So I had to kind of relive that sort of like gaslighty energy and that confusion, that inverted matrix, which comes along with the false light, where you don't know which end is up or what's real, and you're looping in confusion. Granted, this only lasted 2.5 weeks. It was like, I've done this before, I know how to do this. And I realized that was the point, to kind of go through that with the consciousness that I have now, and to unplug it the best that I could, and to do a clearing for myself and the collective as well, because there's a lot of that kind of energy that's gotten away with a lot, because people don't see it, they don't understand it, they fall for it, they feed it, they play along with it. And so a lot of us, and that's what was going on with me. If you've been listening to these readings, that's what I was doing from March, from those last eclipses. Next month we're coming up on the next eclipse, so wow, so there's a completion, kind of continuation energy with that. But unplugging my energy from the systems that are feeding, right? So a lot of the archonic energies are losing their best food sources, so there's a lot of kind of kick up and swirling around that, but so those of us that are unplugging and seeing the truth of that, and then going in, and it's almost like the descent of Inanna, like going down into those darker energies with your consciousness. So that's what we were seeing in that last reading with the 7 of Swords, where he was going, there was the light, the door with the light coming through, and he had all the books, and he was taking the books, the Akashic memories from the light from above down into the cellar. So there were all those analogies with my daughter's poem, and that children's book with the otters, a lot of otters going down into the dark, down into the deep with the light, the light, the stars, and bringing it up, right? So a lot of us doing that, going back again into really dark places that are connected to core wounds from our beginnings, and then of course it goes back galactically as well. So I was talking about this when I was unplugging from those systems through March, and I had shared in a personal share some of the work I was doing with this man from the Orion constellation, that I was remembering, having those memories come back online, right? And so all of these sort of like restoration of the timelines, and the forgiveness, and the the unification, but going into the dark to see these things again. And so this time it didn't really go Akashic for me. It just linked up with this lifetime and what I had experienced, which obviously does go further back. And I could feel how far back it was going because of the degree of like uncomfortability that I had amidst this. And I had to go through that, to clear it. We have to feel it, and to feel it we have to kind of fall in it. So that's what was happening in that last reading too. We were talking about, you fall, your soul chooses to fall so that you can catch yourself in that fall and bring your light in to see the darkness that you couldn't see before, to see the darkness that destroyed you. Of course, you needed to be destroyed as well, but going back into some of those same frequencies and those same energies so that you could hold yourself and choose yourself. So that, right? So anyway, that got kind of intense for me, and I just, it kind of dropped off. There was more that I am going to say, but I kind of lost it there because it's so intense, right? To go in that deeply, and to not realize, it's like, for me, there was some part of me that knew what was going on, but I had to be in that confusion of the false light. I had to be in the energy of that self-doubt, because that's the very thing that I was unraveling. And again, unraveling it's collective work as well. If you were doing something similar to that, whatever it is that connects with your deepest wound in this lifetime, which would then hook up through your Akash and galactically as well, and through the collective, because we share these wounds a lot, especially the galactic wounds and the things, the splits and the atrocities that have happened. We carry them in our cellular memory. So those of us going into the dark to unplug and to bring that light, and to choose differently and to see and to witness, send major rippling effects out into the collective. Okay, so I had this other dream the other night, and there were all these horses. So if we're friends on Facebook, you may have seen this post. And also, I often say on here, like, oh, if you want to be friends on Facebook, my name is Wendy Biondo, Biondo. But then I realized that I never accept friend requests from people that I rarely do, if I don't have mutual friends. So if you could just send me a private message if you're on YouTube and just let me know you're from YouTube, and then I know, and then if you want. Anyway, so I had this dream that there were all these wild horses. There must have been like 50 to 100 of them. And I was standing in this field. The ocean was near. I could feel the ocean. And we were in a sandy place, but we weren't on the ocean. And so there were all these horses, and they were running around me. And it was like a symphony. And it was so amazing. The energy of it was so amazing. And some of the horses were friendly, and they would kind of like come up to me and, just like acknowledge me and move on. And then there was this one bitch horse that was white, and he was all up in my face, and he kept pulling my energy to him. And it kind of reminds me of this experience that I had where this person just wanted all my energy. And it was all about like me and him and me and him. And I was just like, yeah, but this is a collective movement, and we're in service to, I don't want to just get lost in some like la la world with him. But that was also sort of like the flip side of an experience that I had been in before, where I was sort of like that, right? So I could see the patterns and I could see what I was unraveling. But in this dream, yeah, this horse was like distracting me from the larger movement, and wanted all my attention, and wanted to like pull me into this little sub-reality, which felt really, really amazing and seemed connected, but it wasn't, right? And so it was really interesting, that dream. So there were those two things as well. There was this huge collective movement of freedoms, horses representing freedoms, and the stallion, and the masculine collective. And so I've been talking about that too, seeing this huge liberation and awakening of the masculine collective, and turning back to the soul, and joining that one mind where the masculine and the feminine polarities within us being united, and that being the God fractal, and that being the unity principle, where that unity consciousness unfolds, versus the false light, where it might be masculine and feminine merging, but it separates you, it separates you, and it pulls you away from the unified movement, So that was a really interesting dream as well. And also the symbolism of the white, the white horse. White is purity, it's about purity, and it's about purification. So even that thing that comes in as an interference or a distraction is meant to purify you, because it's showing you something. It's showing, because nothing of the fourth dimension or from, the separation consciousness or false light can come at us unless we have a tear in our auric field, or a trauma that we haven't healed, or something that's looping that we haven't looked at yet. So it's just serving, everything's in service to light, like, whatever its intentions are. It's a reflection of us, and it's the exact perfect reflection of what we need to unravel those pieces within us that are still separate, because that's the baggage that can't go to this new, this new trip we're going on, right? So then I had the symbolism of Florida and the paradise and merging with the ocean. What I saw with the ocean on my last full day there, I was there for the sunrise, and I became aware. I just had this like major communication download with the ocean, and then I became aware that the dolphins were in front of me, and so we know that a lot of us know that dolphins come around, and they enhance that, and there's that telepathy, and especially when it comes to the unified field, that's kind of the spirit guides of that. And I've had them come to me before, just in I don't live near the ocean, but they would come to me in visions, or just the energy of them when I was stuck in a duality consciousness, and they would always help me rise up above, that type of thing, especially when things were really divided around the COVID era and the vaccines and all that. Just they were the ones that reminded me to unify and to see the bigger picture. So what I saw with the ocean, what I felt, and with the dolphins was just it became clear to me that all of the waters, like, on this planet, have been upgraded and transmit and hold the codes of the new earth template of this new land that we're going to, this new consciousness. It's not a new land, but it feels like that, right? Like we're going to this paradise vacation. It's like it was all encoded, and I could feel it, and I could feel it in me. And it's like we carry the water as well in our bodies. So it's like we all have this new coding, but a lot of people are really blocked from that. They're blocked from looking within and feeling within, and they're still on the program, and there are pieces of ourselves that are still looping in the program. And so I could see the unity, and I could see and feel what was coming, and I could even see how my situation was a part of that. But there was all this like darker stuff, and it was really confusing. It was really confusing. And I know I've talked with a lot of people that had similar things where it's like you just don't know what's real, and that's sort of what I was saying in that reading before as well. It's like I felt that right away in the situation. Like I didn't know what was real, and I didn't know what to do, but I was really guided to go towards it, because again, the horse was white. It's like there was something in it for me. It was my reflection. It was just like my ex, it was my perfect medicine that I needed. But that doesn't mean that I wasn't to set boundaries or choose myself. There was an action and a will and a reclaiming and a feeling and a process that I had to go through. But just like in that last reading where we were talking about we had the Ace of Cups twice, where the clearing that we were doing was held. It was held by a higher frequency. It was held by a higher wisdom and a higher purpose. I just saw 1717. That's funny. That's been kind of a number for me lately, the 17. Again, it's been looping back around. So anyway, yeah, just a little bit of confirmation there. And so, but it's been intense, and you might have felt like, if you were in this situation, you might have felt like you were under attack, or you were like, oh, I felt that this was like about expansion, and I feel this higher energy like right here, but then there's like this other weird thing in the way. But it's again, it's like cleaning out the pipe. Like it needs to be cleared out. And when we no longer have things in us that need to be cleared out, then we will have our harmonious match. But we just have to keep going. We can't bypass. We can't just pretend that we don't still have stuff that needs to go. And we're always going to be given what we need. We're going to be given the perfect situation, the perfect person, the perfect trigger to help us. It's always in service. It's always us reflected. There's nothing to run away from or feel like a victim to. It's all in service. So okay, so my words just ran out there, so I'm going to jump into the cards. And again, I'm noticing that these readings are a little bit prophetic, like where what we're going to do now with the cards might be true in a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and it might become more and more true as we go along. So depending on when you find this reading, it'll be relevant when it is, if it is. But yeah, there's sometimes a little bit of a future thing. Oh my God, that's so fucking crazy. So I haven't done a collective reading in 2 weeks, right? I think 2 weeks, something like that. And the last overall energy that we got in that last reading was this exact same card. I've used these cards for other things many times. So here we are again with Elephant Spirit, learn from the past. That's very interesting. Wow. So let me clarify that. And that's what we were talking about last time. The way it came through for me last time was the past, like before the fall, where we were repairing, and I can see now even more clearly, maybe that's why it's coming up again, because there's more information where we're repairing those timelines. We're coming back into that unified field, and so we're looping back with some of the things from the past, from our current life past, but also further. Let me clarify this. Let's see what else. Wow. So the devil, this is the devil card, is temptation in the good tarot deck, but this is the devil card. So yeah, that's exactly what I feel was really and is really up. Like even today, I have this joke with my daughter where I just weird things keep happening, and I'm like, you know what, that's demon shit. Like that's demon shit too, and just whatever, just the energy of and it makes sense to me, like as we're because again the energy with the ocean and the energy that a lot of us are feeling, where we're like the horses and the freedom and the wave, and yet here's that white horse. It's just like, oh well, look over here, like come on, we need you to like be sustained and like just trying, because again a lot of the best food sources are exiting, so there's I think a lot of this really kicked up. And again, that message of learn from the past is like we've been around the wheel with this, we know how to do this. It is but the thing about the archonic, false light, demonic, satanic, whatever energy is that it always changes form, and so you figure out one angle, you're like, okay, I got it, I know what this is, and then it shows up again, and it's all shiny and bright, and and you might fall for it, like I did, but again, it's all in service, because we got to find all these places where we still have hooks to these things, and we got to unplug them, and we're going to keep interfacing with them until we get to the root, until we really get to the bottom, and unplug, so that we're not susceptible to that energy, and each little angle, but it's going to keep changing form. It's like shape-shifting type of energy. It's going to keep coming in different ways, and we might keep falling for it until we don't, and for me, it's like literally like 2.5 weeks, versus like 4 months, or, like 7 years, or whatever it is, right? Just breathing through and knowing that we've been encircled and trapped with this energy for eons, and it goes back again to galactic timelines that a lot of us have been there from the beginning, and it takes a long time. It's taken a long time, and this is the time when we're unraveling it, but we have to unravel it. We have to go through the process, and that's the other thing with the false light. It doesn't honor process, and that's what I felt with the situation I was in as well. It didn't honor the process of unraveling. It just wanted the pleasure. It just wanted what it wanted. Like come into the lair, and like and it's like, no, there are bigger things at play. There are bigger things that we're unraveling, and we need to be connected to all of it, and but yeah, it's separate, it's separate, and so it wants to pull, it wants to pull things into separation. I actually forgot what I was going to say, but maybe it'll come back. Oh my God. The devil again, and this is the sexiest devil. Look at him, he's just so alluring, and this is a man, he's a puppet, but it always looks to me like a crystal, and I'm like, wow, look at that crystal. I'm like, that's not a crystal, that's a slave, so there it is again, that confusion, and the sparkles in his hair, and like, just so golden and shiny, but no, I can't believe we got that twice. Wow. So that's that learn from the past again, where it's like you've done it in this form. You understand it. It's taking a different form now. Now it's like, oh, you're not going to fall for the treasures and the juicy apple. Well, what about this? What about sex? What about tantric, elevated? I don't know. Whatever it is, but changing form, but you can feel the energy of it. And you might get a little confused for a little bit, but I don't know. I mean, I feel like I'm like, this is so specific to what I just went through, but I'm trusting, these are the cards that are coming out, and my intention is a collective reading, a collective sharing. So I trust that there are other people on some level that are feeling this type of energy. It might not have come in the form of a partner. It might just come in the form of energy, of abusive energy, or gaslighting energy, or something from your childhood, or even a situation that triggered this type of energy. It might not be the person or situation that you're in. It might have been a situation that created a void where this stuff from within you could come up. Some of those, feelings where you turn on yourself, or you doubt yourself, or you feel bad about yourself. Whatever it is, there seems to be a lot of this around right now. But again, not to be like, ooh, scary, danger, victim. I don't do the whole victim thing, because the victim thing is aligning with the fourth dimensional frequency. And if you want to cap at the fourth dimensional frequency, you can dance with that shit and it will haunt you forever. It's like, oh, you want to play? Let's play. You're scared? Great. Now I get to feed, or you feel like a victim, you feel disempowered, you're going to outrun me. Great. I'm going to chase you. But to see it all, to view it all as being in service to you and showing you those places where you need to heal. and what you need to acknowledge, then it becomes an ally. It does become an ally. It's like, you're trying to trick me, but guess what? You don't know that you are actually helping me. So every time you, as in the archonic forces, none of the people really are doing that intentionally. They don't know. They're content in the false light program, and they're looping in it, and they don't realize it's a problem, and so they don't know that they're attacking, that things are attacking you through them. But the people that are unplugging and trying to get out, that's kind of for this reading is for, I think, where you're really kind of it's like, because you see, but that's the other thing, and I think that was one of the things that I forgot. When you see it, it starts to defrag and it starts to collapse, and so then of course you're going to be a target because you're defragging the system, but that's okay because everything's in service to the light, and so even when it comes to you, and so this is what I was doing with like the actual entities and demons, where I would feel them around me, and instead of like, oh no, battling them all night in the dream space, I would just put my light, my tunnel of light, I would just hook up with it, and I would just like suck them up and out, because a lot of these energies and entities and beings are leaving the planet because they have to, because the frequency that we're feeling in the ocean or with the dolphins or with your partner, your true partner, or in those moments where you're really merging with somebody, that is true, and that is the true frequency. Just like I saw with the oceans, and the dolphins seem to tell me that we're all upgraded to this, and so those that aren't able to, that don't have that codex, or they've gone so far into the dark, into separation, that the only way they can feel that is to feed, they have to leave, and they know that. So a lot of them are leaving. So that's what I would do with the entities. I would just suck them up. Now, could I have done that 4 years ago? No. One, because I wasn't ready, and two, because they weren't ready. You know what I mean? It's not like, oh, I'm so powerful. It's like, I am, but we all are, but and knowing that makes you, it taps you into that power, but it's like they're also ready, so that vessel to leave. So that's also what we can do with these situations where we're not, and that's what I did with my ex as well. Instead of rejecting him, I rejected him for 12 years. I just embraced him, and I just loved him unconditionally. It was just like, you're playing your part, and I just love him now, and there's just no conflict, and I genuinely love him, and it's crazy, and because he was my biggest perpetrator, like put 10 of these, and so just doing that with all of these situations where you don't have to run. And I did that with this man too, where I did open to him, and I was just like, when I felt that energy, that kundalini energy, I even said out loud to him, no demons can exist here. This light is so bright and so high that any distortions are being purified. I just spoke it into existence, because this energy was around, but it's like I knew I was safe, and I knew that I was the vessel that could clear in service to all, because when you're clearing this energy, you're helping it to leave, you're helping it to transmute, and you're helping it to not have so much power in its distortion. You just put a tag on it. You've put a tag on it because you've seen it, and you've transmuted it through you, if you, in whatever version you might be relating, if you are relating, and so therefore the energetic signature of this is not, it doesn't have as much deception, because it's been seen, right? So when you see a pattern, whether it's within yourself, even if it's within another, it's still a reflection of something in some way within yourself. You're still a match to it. You've chosen to take on the polarity to that, so that you could dance with it, and you could help untangle it, and then that person or that situation being in service with you, right? So it's really deep. You know what I mean? It's like, it's really, really deep. And so there's and it's just, we're dancing with a separation, and it feels like things are really separate right now. Like there's so much of that grand light, and there's so much of this grand dark, but they're really not separate. When we put them together, that's when they're integrated, and that's when we get to sustain and live from that higher frequency. We're feeling the light, we're feeling the higher, but right now what's being asked of us, I'm just realizing as I'm doing this reading, is to merge it, to accept that the darkness comes with it. It comes with it. It's a paradox, because on the one hand, it's like, well, we're not bringing our baggage with us. So it seems like, oh, well, we're leaving this behind. But what we're actually doing is we're unifying it, and we're allowing it, and we're accepting it. It's only something that we carry if we keep it separate, and it's in this bag that we keep over here. But if we just sort of welcome it in and allow it to alchemize and to transmute within our being and our energy field and our bodies or our psyches, or however you're being guided to do that, then it just comes back into wholeness, so however we want to look at it, because there's all these different dimensional perspectives, and they're all true, but of course the highest one is the one that's the most true, because it encapsulates everything else. But so you could say it in a lot of different ways, and looking at it with the entities wanting to go back home, what are we going back home to? We're going back home to unity, or these players that come in your life that are playing out this role, of the perpetrator or the predator or the gaslighter or whatever. It's like, you can embrace that too and alchemize that within your being. And then it doesn't, you're not a match to it anymore, and it doesn't have as much power either. It kind of, you both change from it. Wow. So, okay, so we're at a half hour here. Keep going. I only have 3 cards. Oh, that's so beautiful. So the 10 of Cups, this is my Heaven on Earth timeline card. There's that lotus that comes from the mud, and look at how big it is. That's the primary energetic signature in our domain right now, and it's structuring and it's purifying everything. So anything that's coming along is being again being restructured and being aligned through the heart of that lotus, which is through our hearts and through everything that we've earned. And so again, like I was saying in that last reading, what we're pulling in is it is about this. It is about this. But there's just some pieces of ourselves, and therefore of the outer world and of other people that we need to bring back home and acknowledge and sit with, and just sit with. And sometimes when we sit with these things, we want to die. We don't care if we die. It's like we don't know how to do it. But all we have to do is just, because we can't get out of it. And so the other thing that happened for me, I came back from Paradise in Florida, and the whole time I was still kind of processing this, but it was so held in this, it was like so held. It was like right inside of the flower, it was right inside of that lotus, and so it was just being like absorbed and like an octopus, it was just like, I did get to meet an octopus at the aquarium, and oh, it was so special. And otters. I got to meet otters as well. Another highlight of the week, even though I hate zoos and aquariums, they make me sad. But anyway, it just kind of an octopus energy there, where it just, that psychic merging, and it was just all encapsulated, and I totally forget what I was saying. Hold on, because it was important. You might not have forgotten what I'm saying. You might know where I'm going. Sometimes I get so into the imageries and the transmissions and the imageries, and I thought about that octopus, and then I just lost it. All right, I'm just going to move on. It'll probably come back. But I'm going to try to move this cord without my camera. Yay! Okay. The sovereign. Okay, so there it is again, with the lotus, that sovereign space that can hold everything. I wish I could remember what I was going to say. It was an important point. Hold on. Let me just think. Or open. Okay, so open the lotus, opening to it coming through, it being transmuted on the beach. Okay, so I come back from the beach, this heaven on earth timeline thing, while I'm still kind of like transmuting and octopusing and digesting, and then I come home and I come back to New Mexico, and before I left, we are in the monsoon season, but it was raining before I left, like huge rains, and like there was so much green and everything, I was just so happy. And then I came home and find out that it hardly rained at all while I was gone, and everything was really, really dry, and my garden was dry, and it was so hot. It was like near 100, but I also had COVID. And the only reason I know that, I don't give it much attention. I probably had it a million times and just didn't know, but just mild, but my mom wrote, and she's like, how are you feeling? And she's like, I have these symptoms, and I just tested positive for COVID. And I was like, oh, I have a lot of those symptoms too, so. But the thing with COVID is that rogue signal, and so if you've had it, you might have noticed that as well, the rogue signal and the weird inorganic thing that rides on it. And so that's the thing. Whereas like I felt like I couldn't get away, like I couldn't get away from this type of energy, because it was circulating in my body, through that virus, and it was really weird and gross, and it kind of freaked me out for a little bit, because I was like, I can't get away from this. Like, you can get away from a person sort of, but then you have all the like psychic energetic enmeshment as well, so not always, but you can get away from a situation, you can get away from, it looks like it's gonna rain. Oh my God, it looks like it's gonna rain. That would be so amazing. But with the virus, with the the false, like, weird frequency rogue signal stuff that goes along with that virus. I couldn't get, because it was running through my body, my circuitry. But I just did the same thing where I was like, well, my light, so here's this, the sovereign, where my light is stronger than any rogue signal. And so I just align with that and I surround myself in that, and no big deal, And then it was almost like it just defragged, like it just didn't even matter anymore. It didn't have any power over me. And so that's kind of what we're doing with this energy. It's around, it might be inside of us, it might be in our psyche, we might be being triggered around it, but we're holding it in this higher frequency, which again is the dominant energy, just like the oceans and the dolphins showed me. It is what we're transmitting and what we are. And so all we have to do is hold steady, where it's like just, it might feel, and you might still be in this energy where it's like, it might feel, for me, I started getting a lot of clarity on the 7th, where it was like my dear sister and I were always paralleling, and we're just like, we do this kind of shit all the time, and have for eons. And we met each other like right at the perfect time. So we've just been journeying with each other for the last like year and a half maybe. But anyway, we were both feeling this. And so what we were talking about, what we were both feeling separately, was kind of this energy of just like hold steady. Yeah, you got a lot of this swirling around, and you got a lot of this though too, and just like she said, just like it's like a compass. She saw a compass, and she was like, it's like letting it find true north. Just like have patience and wait until it finds true north. And that's the same thing that I was feeling without that great analogy, where it was like, just wait. It's like what Abraham Hicks will say, with the Abraham teachings, where it's like, just like go downstream, let yourself go downstream, and know that your cork will float. It'll pop back up. Just hold on, it's gonna pop back up. And so that was on the 7th, when my friend and I were both getting all these downloads and all these things, and they were matching up. And she was even saying to me, I don't know, maybe you'll get something out of this, or maybe I'm just crazy. And I was just like, no, that's exactly what I've been feeling. And that's how I felt when I was on the beach with the ocean, where I was having all this major clarity, but I was like, I don't know, I kind of feel insane, And then she brought to me, the very things, some of the very things, and then some of of the same downloads. And so just that started flooding in. And then yesterday I just had clarity all day long. My daughter and I went to the forest, which is pretty symbolic, because we were able to go into one of my favorite areas that had been part of the burn. So we haven't been able to be in there since the beginning of June, maybe the middle of June. So it's been about 2 months, and so we went in there, and there were all these flowers, and like a field of iris and a field of cosmos, and things like just starting to bloom, and like all the green from the fire. So it was like on the other side of that transformation and the clearing of these ley lines, and going in there, and it was really heightened, and we were both having so many downloads all day long. Even when we got home, we were talking, and we were sitting in my living room here, and the moon was rising, and it was orange and big, and it was just like a really magical day. Thank God, because even though that magic was there, it's like it was just tricky, sticky, and that's how this is. It flips you upside down, and it flips everything upside down, and it puts you in loops. But it's like being in the washer and just being like, okay, I chose to go down here, and I'm choosing to see. I'm choosing this time. I'm sovereign. This time I've gone through the mud, and I've gotten my flower, and so I'm going down again. So for me, I was like, what the actual fuck? Like, I haven't been in this energy in like 15 years, and like, how did I fall for this again, and why did this come to me? And I had to work through some shame. That was like my version of this within myself, like shame and like just feeling stupid, and all that, but at the same time, having all the other information, where I'm like, okay, I hear you, and I hear you, and I kind of just have to sit in this and allow this to be transmuted. So all the different levels, the levels where it can be within ourselves, I think that's why I'm having trouble remembering my thoughts, because there's so many different levels where this is true. And that's what I was saying before, where we look at it on the most expanded level, because it holds everything else, but we can look at it on, the 4D level of victim, or the, when you're in that energy of beating yourself up, you can feel it as an attack, and and it is, but at the same time, it's just something that needs to be addressed. So that dimensional reality needs to be acknowledged and embraced, and it is embraced through the larger viewing and seeing of your higher self and of your sovereignty, which you've earned. But allowing those feelings, and allowing that clearing, and allowing that perspective, because it is true on that level, but then there's a greater, higher truth as well. Okay, so that was a lot. I'm going to go down below on the next level and kind of read these cards on top. top of each other benediction. Yeah. And so that's where I feel we're at now. And like I was saying, having all that information flooding in, with that Syrian alignment, and a lot of us have memories, Egyptian memories of this time and of that alignment and that connection with Sirius and the connection with the Nile and with the pyramids and with that energy, and it just kind of hooks you back up. So it's just reminding you of who you are. That's the other thing that I'm seeing, is that a lot of us are kind of remembering who we are and what we've came here for, whereas before it might have been like maybe we admired something in somebody else. Or we got inspired by somebody else, but all those things that we admired and got inspired by were actually us. We were seeing ourselves and we were bridging to who we are, So again, that power and that sovereign energy coming online, where we're blooming, we're blooming into what we're really here for. And like for me, part of what I'm here for is to go. And I've had astrologers tell me that before. I was told that I'm a Vulcan or something like that, where lifetime after lifetime I've gone into dark places to bring the light and to assist, and that I didn't always make it, but I have a lot of training, right? So that's this, the double. And my friend too that I work with, she's the same way. She might word it differently, but yeah, that same kind of energy. So a lot of us doing that kind of thing, but other people doing other things, other roles, whatever that role is, but remembering who we are, almost like receiving it. And why? Because we're doing such profound clearing, and we're clearing out the looping and the insecurities and all the ways that we're a match to the things that sort of distract us, but they're distracting us to get us to do that work. We're doing that work. We've been doing that work, but this last one was really intense. And again, it's because we're making a move. This is the dominant frequency. We're moving into our higher timelines. We are, and we have to be cleared. And it's kind of ruthless. It's kind of relentless and ruthless. But that's our higher selves. My daughter and I always joke, like, our higher selves are assholes. They're not going to let us be content. They're not going to let us loop in false light and be content with that. They're going to bring us out the whole way so that we can liberate others with that transmission, that transmission of the integration of the light and the dark and that God fractal that comes from there. And that's when you have that. That's when you can really receive. It's when you stop running from the dark and you embrace it, and you realize that all of your trials were were reflection. They were reflection, and they were bringing you something, and they were for you. And that surrender out of victim is when that benediction can flow, and when that information can flow. The information, the wisdom of your own soul coming back to you, because you're not fighting it anymore. We all have light and dark. We have light and dark when we're separate, and when they're together, we're just everything. We're both, and we're all. And so, okay, let me do another card here. That's so funny. This is the exact card that I was thinking of. So the Chariot's the fairy stallion in this deck, but usually it's the white horse and the black horse. And only when you have the white horse and the black horse reined up and sort of at your service, where it's like you've tamed them both. You're not like too far into the light, into the false light, where you're rejecting the dark, and because part of the dark is also process. Part of the dark is also like sometimes taking one for the team and not always having what you want in your little rainbow land. It's like you want it how you want it when you want it. It's like sometimes you got to wait eons or lifetimes to really come into, this full fruition of your dreams or your energies, and just knowing that this is collective movement and it's a long game, and, you can't spiritually bypass just to prove to yourself that you're okay, or that, I have this now I'm worthy, or whatever. It's like, it's that long game and that long process. But you also can't just be over in the dark, looping and manipulating people and, stealing from people and vamping off of people and all that, right? It's like both of those extremes exist, but when you pull them together and you honor your light and your dark, you sit with them both, you don't reject either, you don't reject either. But that's what's tricky, because this is the upside down world. So even if you're not like really, it looks like you have a lot of light, but it's actually the false light, because you're you know what I mean? Like if you have too much light, then you're rejecting the dark, and then you're rejecting the process and the dark feminine and the emotion and the mess and the breakdown and the transformation. You're avoiding that, that's distortion. But then also if you're rejecting the actual dark, right? I guess I'm saying the same thing because it's all the same, right? It's like we want to look at it as separate, but it's all the same thing. And as you go further along into the continuum, it just loops back around to the other side, and coming into that, it's like we can't get away from that now. We can't avoid the darkness, and we also, if you are only in the darkness and you're not like surrendering to a higher power or to the unity or to the true light, which is the oneness of everything, then you got to leave the planet, and a lot of these entities are, a lot of these beings are. But for us who are just people that have been, or light workers or whatever that have been caught in this program, we're just confronting these things within ourselves, and we're clearing, and we're integrating, and we're doing that often in relation to an outer reflection. Okay, but again, this being the exact God fractal card where you have your white horse and your dark horse together, and that's the true unity, the unity of the polarities, the masculine and the feminine, the light and the dark, and having them together is where that third energy comes, that third energy of creation, that the child, the mother, the father, and the child, the birthing, the creation, but needing both of these intact. So yeah, that feels like a really clear message. Let me do one from my Slavic tarot, and then I might just go ahead and wrap up because my daughter's going to leave this room soon. So what do we have here? Oh, the Six of Cups. That's interesting. Wow. So the Six of Cups is a card of nostalgia. It's interesting. This deer has been a real symbol, a real kind of totem for me lately, and the message of gentleness, gentleness and protection and gentleness as well. But the Six of Cups being a card of nostalgia in the past, it can also be a card of soul contracts, like past life connections with people. And I think there's a lot of that going on where, we are kind of going back into the past, into our past and our Akashic past, and we're having these interactions with people that, again, might be playing the opposite side, but they're your perfect mirror because you kind of need to confront these types of things. But these things, just that soul family, but it's really, really deep. And I keep getting this card for myself where it's like there's something about this. There's an energy. It's almost like a childhood thing. And so this was coming up before a few months ago, or maybe not quite that long, where it's like there was something from our past, something from our childhood, and it reminds me of what I was saying, where a lot of us are receiving and remembering what we're here for, our power and what our missions are, and what we're doing, and choosing that over anything else. There could be this like, hey, you could come and have this wonderful thing, but you're like, yeah, but it's like a distraction from the larger mission that I have, and I can't do that because I hear this calling so loudly. I need to pass that by, and I'm sorry if that disappoints you. I have bigger things to do, and that type of thing. So that kind of mission where, yeah, you might be in a situation that's really good, but there's this one thing that's off, and it's like you have to go the whole way. You can't have anything that's distracting you or blocking you, or that is it's kind of that old energy, like maybe of an addiction. This is also a card, an energy of addiction, where maybe there's some kind of addiction from your past. Even if that addiction is, like in my case, like self-betrayal or self-denial or something, and then having it reflected. Maybe your thing from the past is addiction or substances, and you keep getting pulled into that, or attracted to people that might be really great, but they might have this. I have had this conversation with somebody that's going through this type of situation. So, but yeah, it's just another example of how this kind of thing can play out. Where, but you have to say no to it. Even if this thing that you have going on is really, really good, and it kind of like smacks of like where you're going. It kind of smacks of that new energy. It's like we got to go the whole way. We got to go the whole way, and so we're not leaving this which we knew in our past is kind of feeling like that, like, because it came up before the Six of Cups with the Seven of Wands, where it's like that thing that you knew when you were young and you were little, and you knew what you were for because all you could do was be it, because you hadn't gotten conditioned or bruised or traumatized away from it yet. You held that code, and that type of thing coming back now, and it's coming back. So it's kind of validating what I was saying. It's coming back through this polarity work that we're doing, through a lot of us going down to the bottom, and just almost losing our shit, but not really, because we still had this surrounding us. We were held in that energy, held in the energy in some way, whether within ourselves or within a situation or context, or just the energy of the planet, the ocean. Yeah, and so because of that, these pieces are coming, these bits of ourselves are coming back online. We're getting ourselves back. We're getting ourselves back. We're not abandoning ourselves. We're going the whole way. We're going the whole way for what we're here for who we are, and just being ourselves is enough. And if we can't be all of ourselves in a certain situation with a certain person or in a certain whatever, then we have to let it go, and also let go of the part of ourself that might want to settle for that, or might want to go to an addiction to take the edge off. We got to go the whole way down into ourselves. And I feel like that's what's coming. I feel like that hasn't quite happened yet, where we might have gone into this energy and now we're kind of like panting, like, are you exhausted? I'm really exhausted. Like, I had all the downloads the last 2 days and now I'm just like, oh, I'm so tired, kind of tired, kind of catching our breath. But I feel like there's this next step where we kind of collapse. We kind of collapse back in with ourselves, and it's almost like a death, like where there's a death. We're receiving something, but we're also letting something go. Let's see what the next card is. That was kind of an intuition. Let's see if it validates it. Oh my God. So right underneath the Ten of Cups is the Ten of Cups. So we get this card twice. So last time we got the Ace of Cups twice, where that was the double message. That was a predominant message. So this is the Heaven on Earth timeline. We are on it. We are in it. Okay. We also got the Devil twice, so it's like, it might not seem like we're on it because we have a lot of this floating around. I think a lot of us maybe are coming out of this energy, like I said, kind of catching our breaths. But there's both of this at the same, in the same proportions. Going on right now, going on, but that's because the polarities are balancing. They're balanced. They're balanced. They're in equal measure, right? And that's where they're coming together. They're coming together where we can move forward in unity and unison, and that's where we're in our sovereignty. We're not running from anything, and we're receiving this sort of like memory. This is like a memory. It's a memory of who we are. It's interesting. So the memory of who we are, that's how this card is coming through for me, is right underneath the Devil card, one of the Devil cards. And so it's like he's kind of the portal. Again, we have to go through, we have to interface with our darkness, sometimes in the form of another. There's something we're retrieving ourselves through that. So it's very important. That's an ally energy. And then this one is coming out with the Chariot, so the moving forward. Again, it's what's moving us forward. So this is not an aberration. It's like in my dream, that pain in the ass horse that was all up in my face, like, stop distracting me, but it was white. That's funny. White horse. It was white, and it was like, it was important. It's like it's part of the path. It looks like it's an interference. It is, but it's also part of the path. So it's like that's that dimensional perspective where you can see. On the fourth dimensional 3D perspective, it's in the way, it's interference, it's trying to trick you. Yes, that's true, but that's also happening right now as part of this path, because it needs to, so that you can have both and be integrated, so you can get this part back. Okay, so let me do, I think, one last card, because that will complete them all. The other thing is this card, the benediction, is coming out under the learn from the past. So this is sort of like what we're receiving. And again, this came through last time as the before the fall type of energy, when unity consciousness, before we went into fragmentation, where we had this and this, and they were separate. Before the fall, it was all together. It wasn't separate, and it worked. The polarities weren't as extreme. It was more like masculine and feminine, or night and day, or things that were still in harmony. Harmony. It's just we went the whole way down, so it got really separated, and then we separated out this, or we separated out this. So what I'm saying. So they're coming. They're coming. Back together here. Okay, so that's what we're receiving, is that unity. That's what we're receiving. So let's see what this last card is coming out underneath the Sovereign. So that's another 32 card. We keep getting these 32 or 23, these cards, these 5 cards. 5's being a card of change. So we are going through really big change right now. That transformation can be really intense. Excuse me. And that, hi, my black cat. Oh my God. Sovereignty coming out underneath the Sovereign, different decks. Yeah, so that's so beautiful, the Sovereign and Sovereignty, and it's a 5 card as well, 4 in the 1. So there we go, and I think I will end there, but I probably will recap. Yeah, so again, it's like we have a lot of double messages: the Sovereign energy, the Heaven on Earth energy, the higher timeline, the new Earth. This energy really, really being anchored. We have 4 from that higher timeline, and then of course we have this Devil energy. But again, it's all in there together. We're coming back in. I'm going to pull one last closing message. I haven't done a goddess card yet. Let me do a goddess card. See what we get. Oh yeah, okay. So flow. So we get Rhea and flow, and that's and the water. You know, the water. So a lot with the water. A lot with the water, and knowing that all of the waters are encoded, and our waters are encoded, and so it's like we're woven with this. You know, we're merged with it, we're flowing with it, and we can flow, and we can flow with our lives. So again, that message of not resisting any of it, not resisting this kind of stuff, knowing that it's here for you, and flowing, and like my friend and I just like kind of holding steady and waiting it out until it becomes clear, knowing that it will. Sometimes you just have to go dark. You know, Inanna's descent is actually her ascent. You know, she goes the whole way down, and she has to confront the thing she is. And sometimes it's like the chrysalis again, you know, everything goes black and you can't tell which end is up and which end is down, and you just have to let yourself dissolve and trust it, and know that you will pop back up, your cork will float. So that's a really beautiful message. Again, I do have this feeling, I was pulling some more cards to see if there was some sort of illumination around what I was feeling around this sort of like retrieving of this parts of ourselves. And it just feels to me, again, with this closing message of flow, where it's something that happens very naturally, where there's my kitty, Panta. Yeah. And so, just this message of it just happening very naturally. But I do feel that the next step is sort of this like collapsing back into ourselves, where there's a release. And it's almost like the transformation has already happened, because that's what it feels like to me. Now, maybe you're going to experience this, but it's kind of a similar message from last time, but just more pronounced in your face, where maybe we didn't know that when we went down to the bottom to retrieve those gems, it was going to be so fucking dark and so fucking confusing, and like what the actual hell, even though this other energy was there at the same time, you know. But I feel like we did do that, and there has been a release and a break, and that this is the stuff that's coming online now, and more and more and more of it. And so just to continue to flow, but to have that perspective and that reverence for these passages. And if there's any amount of self-blame or judgment or feeling scared or like something went wrong, just to allow that to wash out, you know, and knowing that everything is for you and everything is in service. So I hope that I made sense. I hope that that was clear, and I never know. I always go back and listen, because I'm just sort of talking, you know, channeling. But anyway, thank you for listening and for joining in 56 minutes. Oops. And and I'll see you next time if I do.